this month's theme, and that is rooted in the divine. That's the theme. Rooted in the divine is a line from the textbook, and really what it means is that we live, or that life happens, from the invisible to the visible. Let me read you this quote. This is from Reverend Lola Wright. Y'all remember back in January when I said I wasn't going to take anybody else's outline and try to do it as a talk? Well, I lied. I really like Lola Wright, and we think similarly enough that I decided I'd try this again. So let me read you this quote. Every human being is a glorious intersection of the infinite and the finite. When we align ourselves with the truth of life versus the facts of life, we consciously avail ourselves to universal laws that allow greater ease, peace, love, and freedom to be made manifest. Transformation becomes possible. A glorious intersection of the infinite and the finite. So I'd like to start off by doing a little thought experiment with y'all, and I'd like a little bit of feedback. Close your eyes for just a minute, and I want you to say these two things to yourself, and then I want you to check in to see how you feel about what you've said. I am spirit incarnate. I am spirit incarnate. Okay, you could say it out loud too, sure. I am the one I've been waiting for. I am the one I've been waiting for. Now just take a minute to be with that. Okay, so anybody want to offer what that felt like to them? No wrong answers. It felt true.
The first part of it did, because I've always been the spirit more than human.
The first part felt true.
I can't swallow.
The second part you can't swallow. So I am the one I've been waiting for. Okay? Two more.
I wish I could make it more consistently accessible to believe it.
You wish you could make it more consistently accessible to believe it. Okay? It felt grounding. Okay. See, now everybody wants to talk. See how y'all are? You feel very humble. And brought a sense of joy. Okay. So I have played this thought experiment with myself quite a number of times this week. And I've gotten two reactions, right? One, at some moments when I say it, I feel this upswelling of joy and energy, power, if you want to call it that. And then at other times I've said it, and it was like I felt burdened by it. Like, you've got to be kidding me. And then I think about that the part of that quote from Lola, and it says that we are a glorious intersection of the infinite and the finite. So we're going to talk today, or I'm going to talk today about, so Ernest Holmes said that mind has two components. Now when he said mind, he meant consciousness itself, so infinite mind. And what he said was there is a causative mind, so that's the mind that makes a choice in us. And then there's universal mind, which is he also called law. So it's this, what he said was impersonal mind.
So we have God being personal and God being impersonal. And when I heard that, I don't like it. Because look, I found a lot of wisdom when I was about 14, sitting on this flat-topped hill that we called, interestingly enough, Flat Top, smoking a lot of weed. And the thing that I could ascertain at 13 or 14 already was that the thing they were saying at church, where it was like, God loves you and you're going to hell, right? That didn't make sense to me, right? It was like, oh, so I was like born fallen, even though I never did anything, and God is love, but now it's all about this, like I got to go through these 7 sacraments, and there's all this other stuff and these requirements, and it didn't work for me. And so I long time, from a very young age, figured out that this version of the divine is no bueno for me. It just seemed incompatible, right? And so when I got older, and they said, you better find a God or you're going to die in order to get sober. There's a line from the Big Book that God is willing as only the dying could be, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to find something that works for me. And I did. It started out kind of like Star Wars: The Force, it was like something you could tap into, right? And I didn't know how actually on point that was and remains for me. Anyway, so there's the personal part that, and there's this impersonal part. And the impersonal part is the law. It's the law of creation itself. It's how thoughts become things or cause becomes effect. Ernest Holmes said it this way: our consciousness of God is both personal and impersonal. It is personal in that it is personified through us, and it is impersonal in that we are all using a universal power. So what I did, so that the impersonal wouldn't feel wrong to me, is I just started calling it impartial. So for me, God has these 2 parts, this warm, loving, personal presence, and then an impartial process. See, because that thing that Holmes called impersonal, that I'm calling impartial, that he also called law, is really just the process of creation itself. And I really want that to be not unique to me, don't I? Because I want Celia to be able to have use of that, and I actually want that to have pre-existed all of humankind. That's how the universe manifested, right? So that works for me. And the thing about this creative power for us is that it operates in tandem with the choices that we make and the attention that we give. So I used to say that there's, that the choice is mine, the power is not, right? And that helped me understand that I was actually directing this universal power by my choices. So the choice is mine, the power is not. And then at 4 o'clock this morning, I woke up and I thought that doesn't fit for me anymore. Which was bad, because then I had to kind of rewrite part of my talk. But what I came to, that I don't know how I missed this before, but it takes what it takes, is that my power is the choice. I mean, how did I miss that? Right? So both the personal and the impersonal are power. One is the power of creation itself, and the other is the power of choice. Now here's the thing. if we get those two forms of power confused, we're in trouble. So the thing that I asked you, the thought experiment I asked you to do, when something in me feels burdened by those affirmations, I've gotten the two powers confused. So let me unpack that for a second. When I believe that I have to be the doer of manifestation, I have to make things work, I've stepped out of my lane and I've stepped into God's lane. When I refuse to choose, I have stepped out of my lane and I'm driving in the victim lane. When I resist that this is the nature of creation itself, so the process that is powerful, that is not personal to me or partial to me, and the choice that makes use of this universal power, when I resist the nature of that relationship, I suffer. I suffer from exhaustion when I think I'm supposed to be making stuff happen. And I suffer the insufferable feeling of being a victim when I refuse to choose. Sometimes that whole thing feels like good news, and sometimes it feels like bad news. I suspect that's, anyway. So think about that for a minute. Do you recognize in yourself that you are powerful, or that the power indwells you? Do you know that about yourself? Right? I think when life is kind of going along the way we like and we're getting some outcomes that we like, we're all like, got this. And Lola Wright, this is just a great turn of phrase. She said, we practice in times of comfort, so we are prepared in times of challenge. It seems like I've talked or mentioned a number of times in the last couple of months that thing that we do where we get on a roll with our spiritual practices, whatever those look like for us, whether it's yoga, affirmations, spiritual mind treatment, walking a labyrinth, and things are flowing. We are in it, y'all. Things are good. And then we wake up one day and we go, well, things are really good. I don't need to go to yoga today. Or I don't need to center myself today. Or go to an AA meeting today, whatever the practice is, right? And then that becomes 2 days, then 3 days, then 5 days, then 25 days later, we're in the dumps and we're like, what happened? Right? And it's because we feel great and then we forget to practice in times of comfort, and then we create a time of challenge, or sometimes life creates times of challenge for us. Right? So sometimes our harm is of our own choosing, or our own, well, we did it, right? And then sometimes life throws things. You know, none of us singularly created the cluster that is United States culture and politics right now. None of us singularly created that. But it's messy. And we actually need to be practicing in times of comfort so that we can actually look at all of what's going on out there and see through it to what's truthful and possible, and I mean truth with a capital T. But if we haven't been practicing, we will be hypnotized by conditions. Hypnotized. My first science of mind teacher said, when something would happen, and people would say, well, why does this happen? She would say, well, I don't know. But what I do know is that I can demand that good must come of it. So what that teacher was doing was insisting that her consciousness could be part of the change that uplifted humanity, the planet, and everything else. And so what that was for me was a powerful lesson that I'll never have it mastered. You know, I'm a hot-headed kind of person, and my first solution is always, well, I'll just kill him. That's what's going to happen. I'll just kill him. But what I have to do is remember that this universal creative power is always creating. And so the quicker I can get to a place where I can say, well, I don't know why the hell we're having this, but good must come of it. The faster I can get there, the faster I can truthfully, wholeheartedly get there. Not just get up in my head and like do an affirmation about good must come of it, good must come of it. That's not what I'm talking about. Right? That's just, I mean, okay, it's better than nothing maybe. But the sooner that we can, or I can get to a place where I can be absolutely clear that good must come of this. In other words, I shift to the understanding that the power that is the universe indwells me and responds to the words that I speak with yes. The sooner I can get to that place, the sooner I become part of a collective solution, and the sooner I can get to that place, the faster I find peace, power, and purpose within me. Right, that's kind of a big sigh. The third point in the outline says, do not misunderstand this teaching as a pull yourself up by your bootstraps philosophy. That is entirely too simplistic. So I think I've sort of been hinting at this, and that's that if all we needed was bootstraps, we'd be exhausted, right? Because there's no need for a universal power if I'm just going to do it all. You know, if I'm going to tell the universe, I got this, I mean, I can handle my own bootstraps. The thing is, if I tell the universe, I got this, what's the universe say? Right. The universe is not codependent. That is for sure. Right? So we have to look when we own the power, when we own the power of choices, that we may be choosing one thing here, but sometimes there's like the complicated business of our individual histories, right? So what did you inherit? You know, Holmes called these things that are shared beliefs of a group or subgroup, he called them race consciousness. And he didn't mean like race, like we typically use the term. He meant human race. But it's really those subconscious beliefs can be peculiar to any group. So it could be your actual race. It could be female. It could be family of origin stuff. So we all inherit a set of beliefs But we don't just pluck them out. Maybe we do pluck them out of the air. I don't know. But they're like, we get them from our parents. We get them from our birth order. We get them from our ethnicity and our race and our gender and ad infinitum. So part of the process of the power of choice is really about releasing the consciousness we didn't choose. Part of the power of choice is choosing to release the consciousness we did not choose. And it's one of those oddities of consciousness and personal growth that as soon as you decide that you're going to release something that doesn't belong to you and that you never wanted in the first place, it might be like, we don't go to college. My family doesn't go to college, or whatever it is. The first thing you see is like this evidence everywhere of why that belief shouldn't be discarded, right? So it's like you say, I am this thing, and all these circumstances in your life pop and go, but really, are you? And that is where the discipline to say, nope, I shall not be moved, shall not be distracted. This is the choice I'm making. This is who I am, and I am supported in it. And screw all y'all. Y'all meaning all the little, the committee that's like, don't do that. Don't do that. What would your mother think? Their feelings will be hurt. They'll think you're too big for your britches. You'll attract attention to yourself. You'll scare your sister. Whatever. So here's the thing that I know. For me, being the gatekeeper of my own consciousness, so that I'm careful about what I am using universal power for, that's really challenging for me. I have one of those minds that, I've made peace with it, and I've learned to love my mind, my brain, but it's it can be dysfunctional sometimes. And what I mean is it will obsess on something negative. And it's really powerful. And I was actually having a conversation with somebody this week about that. It's like, I've done the treatment, and then 30 seconds later, boom, I'm back to this horrible pattern of thinking. And I feel all anxious, and everything's not right. And here's what I told that person. Here's what I'm going to tell you. And this is based on the fact that I am a sinner around this. And by sinner, I don't mean a fallen person. I mean I miss the mark with this a lot. You cultivate relationships with people who will know the truth for you. So if I get into this thing, repetitive, false, old thinking, the best thing for me to do is call Alexis and say, Alexis, can you pray for me? And then the next thing is I have to find something else to occupy my mind. Because otherwise, Alexis is over here planting this beautiful seed, and I'm digging it up as fast as I can, right? So I've got to do something else with my mind. Maybe I say to myself, I am the one I've been waiting for. Spirit indwells me. All that God is, I am. I am aligned with universal truth, whatever it is. And I'm doing that over and over so that I'm not thinking myself into the ground while Alexis is trying to plant something beautiful for me. This is why we come together in community. This is why we have prayer partners. This is why we do mastermind groups. This is why we're starting small groups. There are people that can do this on their own, but I'm not one of them. I never have been. And you know what? I'm okay with that. So if you don't have somebody that knows the truth for you, if you don't know how to write something, an affirmation, to occupy your mind, there are so many people in this room that can do that with you, that would love to do that for you. Avail yourselves of the loving consciousness that exists in this room every single Sunday. You can go to the website. You can put in a prayer request. You can say on that prayer request, would you like to be called? Would you like a practitioner to call you? And they'll call you. You have options. If you can't do it for yourself, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It just means you've got into a closed energy system, and you're kind of feeding on yourself. Does that make sense? And you need something to come in, because this consciousness over here remembers that there is a universal power operating on your behalf, and this consciousness over here remembers that the power that you have is the power of choice. Hang on, I think I might be done. Yeah. Yeah, I'm done. Brad, come play the piano for me. So we're going to go into prayer, but I got something I want you to think about. So go ahead and close your eyes. Now I want you to spend a minute or two contemplating, answering this question for yourself. Who do you say you are? Who do you say you are? And now eliminate all of the roles that you play. Mom, spouse, nurse, teacher. And ask yourself again, who do I say I am? And so taking a deep breath, what I realize is the essence of self-knowing. Is that the more I ask this question, the more I eliminate my doingness, the roles that I play, everything from my finite life. So that ultimately the answer to the question is I am. I am the infinite, having this life experience as the finite. Living sort of in two worlds. Here and now, and eternity. And this truth is both the source of my suffering, the source of my strength, and to borrow a word, the source of my salvation. So I commit this day to remember that the powerful choice is mine. The powerful process is not. When those two things, choice and process, are in harmony, I experience the powerful truth of who I am. And I am whole and I am well.